Hello, what's up guys, this is Sequins here. So a few days ago, I made the first part of an IRL... Wait. 2020? But... Oh my god. I was only going to be a few days. It must be my TARDIS malfunctioning again. Ooh, 2020, that was a year in history, wasn't it? I'm so sorry about next year. I'm so sorry about next year. I just really hope you guys can pull through it, because 2022, that is where the magic happens, I promise you. Should I just go back in the TARDIS and try again? Okay, never mind. Awkward. Anyway, I started a video series on whether or not it's possible to create a Doctor Who TARDIS in real life with today's technology. I've already covered the first part about time travel, and you can find it in the description below, and hopefully somewhere on the screen. And after watching, you can come back to this video and it'll probably make more sense. Unless you already know, of course, about time travel in real life and you're a super cool scientist. Now, obviously it's not possible to create a fully functioning TARDIS in real life exactly as is shown in the TV series, but you probably already knew that and want me to actually break down the main characteristics and features of the world famous time machine, and to see how many of them might actually be at least slightly possible in today's world of science and science theory. I should remind you that I'm not a scientist or a Gallifreyan Time Lord, so I'm not going to claim everything as 100% accurate and scientific. Instead, I look into the studies scientists have made in online sources and compare them and apply them to how science fiction writes them. So the first technology in this video I want to discuss with you is its ability to teleport. You know, appear and disappear from one place to another with ease. It's probably the second most obvious feature of the TARDIS seen in the show. It's also in no way unique to Doctor Who in terms of a science fiction idea. You see, such a technology would have to take the travelling person, animal, object and so on as it is and transport it into another place. In theory it seems pretty easy, right? Well, in practice there's a lot that could go wrong. There are two main types of teleportation in theory, and they are physical and non-physical teleportation. We already do the latter to a very small extent, but as most things that we would ever want to teleport are physical, we would have to somehow convert them into non-physical and then back into physical again, so maybe we would need to get a kind of snapshot of those many millions of atoms exactly as they are, and make sure that they get safely transported in the same way as before the trip. Another problem with this is you can't measure the quantum state and position of the particles at the same time, as analysing the position would change the quantum state. We can also look at the quantum teleportation, and it requires a link between the atoms from the source and destination, where you want to go from and to, in order to not break any laws of physics, like atom pairs if you will. This is called quantum entanglement. This method would require the destination to create those atoms at the destination and then destroy the source atoms. Technically we're not breaking any laws here, as we're not actually transporting matter through space faster than the speed of light. The transporting body is merely being destroyed and recreated again, but in another place. It gets a little more complicated once I tell you that you can measure how the spin of the first electron compares with the spin of the second regardless of the distance in space. There's more promising theories about downloading the human mind and uploading it into another body in another location, but we're sticking to the teleportation of an object with life forms within, like the TARDIS, so I won't be discussing that in this video. A dematerialization occurs with the TARDIS, followed by rematerialization in another location. It basically means the TARDIS and all contents are safely converted into a kind of radiation that is transported and then reconverted back to its original state of matter upon arrival. We're pretty far from this conversion technology on the mass scale of atoms to convert in such a short amount of time. Another thing I'll point out, once you've worked out how to teleport with no disastrous side effects, is transporting onto moving objects like the Earth. you'd have to make it such that your teleportation method is relative to that object. Already, if you're trying to get from one place to another on a moving planet like Earth, this is really important. There's also the fact that different parts of the Earth are spinning at different speeds, so you would need to know the exact velocity of your destination for every visit, every teleportation, every trip. So in summary, you're not going to be able to build any kind of vehicle that even remotely performs the feat of teleportation, at least in your lifetime. It's probably not going to happen. One of the most iconic features of the TARDIS is that its interior is much more massive than its exterior. In the Whoniverse, this is known as dimensional transcendentalism. Dimensional transcendentalism. I think I got that right. And uses transdimensional engineering. The first Doctor said it was like entering a fourth dimension, and the distance would reverse time acceleration, making only the exterior police box visible. The fourth Doctor attempted to describe it as imagining a bigger cube further away from a smaller cube, fitting inside it but without the aspect of distance. Also, in Universe, the 13th Doctor has stated that humans would be unable to comprehend the science of transdimensional engineering, but I'm going to look into it a bit more and look at some alternatives for the real world. I've already talked about wormholes in my first video, but we could use them in this subtopic too. Mathematics prove that they could exist in real life, but none have yet been observed. One end could connect the outside of the TARDIS to the inside, meaning the interior would have to be located somewhere in the universe, most likely instead of another dimension, which we simply don't have access to right now. So the last point I'll discuss in this episode is its chameleon or camouflage technology. It's actually a feature of the TARDIS that has been mostly observed as broken or just not repaired yet in the series, and has not been repaired by the Doctor for various reasons, but I'll probably make a separate video on that in the future. Like a real life chameleon on Earth, the TARDIS is able to alter its exterior appearance to whatever physical form would suit it best in that particular environment, in order for other people, aliens, animals to not notice it being out of the unordinary and make attempts to steal it, for example. The form can be decided by either the Doctor or whoever's piloting the TARDIS, or the TARDIS itself would automatically decide what of it would appear to be simply by scanning the environment and choosing a shape. So there's different ways this could be achieved in science theory. We would need artificial intelligence to scan the environment and decide an object that the ship would best be disguised as, which wouldn't be too difficult. But then there's the actual changing of its appearance. We're not just talking about changing the colour of something here. We're wanting to somehow create and destroy and manipulate atoms from thin air, and that's basically not possible right now. In the Whoniverse, we can physically touch the exterior TARDIS police box, as if it was an actual police box, but we'd be far from being able to do something like that more or less instantaneously anyway. The TARDIS uses a perception filter on top of its disguise, so people tend to not pay much attention to it regardless of its appearance. It would take quite an understanding of psychology and other sciences to surround an object in order to make it for the most part unnoticed. We tend to not notice things we are already so used to and familiar with seeing because our minds are naturally evolved to perceive the inordinary or unusual as a potential threat, instead of wasting time and energy resources in our mind on analysing whether or not your laundry basket is going to take over the world tomorrow. Creating a technology that bypasses how the mind carries out these decisions is possible in theory, but who knows how long it would take to achieve. There's a huge amount of how the mind works that we just can't even begin to understand in 2020, but it's possible that mental manipulation could potentially be linked with psychological processes to alter our perception. And that's just for one person, one observer of the TARDIS in this example. Attempting to change the perception of every person, animal, alien, whatever, computers, artificial intelligence that could be observing the TARDIS would be so much more difficult. Oh, and if you didn't notice it and you're running along straight into the time ship, that would probably hurt and ruin the disguise. Unless you could successfully calibrate the perception so that it's noticeable enough for people to see but not actually bother asking questions or properly observe it. That's it for this video for today. Thanks for watching part 2 of my TARDIS IRL series. I'm about only halfway through though, so please go ahead and subscribe to see the end of the series through. I'm going to talk about more IRL Doctor Who videos in the future, as well as other Doctor Who related content, so stay tuned next week hopefully for the next video. For now, this is Sequence dematerializing.